Welcome in, everyone, to episode 146 of the Batflip Podcast. My name is Damien, here with David. Today, we are going to do the wildcard recap and division series preview / predictions. You'll notice Matt's not here. He's still on vacation with his family, so we told him just go ahead and enjoy that. We'll handle this episode today. And David, we had some fun wildcard series and some fun division series matchups here that we're going to start happening tomorrow. But how you doing, and what were your overall thoughts on the wild card week?
First of all, it's Friday night, so we get to have Batflip podcast and drink a beer, so that's always fun.
Yeah.
But the wild card week, I did get to watch a few of the games. We'll talk about some of those bigger moments. I guess we get to this point, and now I'm questioning whether we need 3-game sets. And maybe that'll be a good point we can bring up, is that it felt like the first game, completed all the series, right? And that was kind of the vibe I got this week. Was I watched one very important game and then one that didn't really seem to matter because it felt like the team that was already ahead was just kind of going to win. So in each series, really. So, maybe it was anticlimactic a little bit. This is the shortest series. Now we get into like the traditional Major League Baseball playoffs. I'm very excited to watch a few of these games. I think there's going to be some really good matchups before we get started. How are you doing, Damien?
I'm doing just fine. I mean, doing great. We get to get some Dodgers postseason baseball here tomorrow, so I couldn't be more excited about that finally. And this wild card week was interesting. I mean, I was really invested in some of these games that were being played. Like you said, it is we do have to kind of look at maybe if the 3-game wild card series is really all of that, because I mean, if we look back to 2020 when we had the first of this kind of format, there was one series that went to 3 games. 2021 didn't have that. It was back to the single game. But then 2022, one series went to 3 games. And then this year, which we'll talk about here, there's no game 3s. So like out of the 3 years we've done this, we've had 2 game 3s. So I mean, that's something we'll have to talk about another day, but it is kind of head scratching. It did kind of set the tone for what the rest of the game 2s looked like, but it was overall a really fun week, and excited that we get some postseason baseball here tomorrow, especially some Dodger postseason baseball, because that's always fun. But let's go ahead and start by, I guess, just going off the games that were played first here, and that was the Texas and Tampa Bay Rays. They had the early slate on both days. Game 1 of this series, basically, we can just call that the Jordan Montgomery game. He came in here through 7 shutout innings, 5 strikeouts, 93 pitches, just completely looked overmatching the Rays. And that Rays offense, just, they couldn't really get anything going. I mean, Randy Arozarena had a couple hits, but outside of that, it was really, really stagnant. And the Rangers offense, they were able to scrap some together against Tyler Glasnow. I think they got a couple runs off him early, but David, what do you think about the Rangers winning this game 1 series?
Yeah, this one went exactly the opposite of how I thought it was going to, right? The Tampa Bay crowd was almost non-existent. There was only like 19,000 people at a playoff game there. It was very sparse. The energy wasn't really in the building. And then on top of that, the Rangers very clearly were not phased by losing out on the bye and home field advantage and all of those things. I mean, that was a team on a mission. I've almost completely flipped my Rangers opinion here, because not only is this Rangers team like one of those teams that's been, hunting this playoff run for quite some time regarding, their free agent acquisitions of Marcus Semien and Corey Seager, Nathan Eovaldi, Jacob deGrom, who obviously isn't going to play in the series, but they've been very aggressive on the trade market, with the Aroldis Chapman trade, with, going and getting Jordan Montgomery. And, Montgomery and Eovaldi were absolutely dominant in this series. Evan Carter had like 7 hits. So not only do they have these really great, free agents, but they have a rookie out here performing at the top level in playoff time when it matters most. this Rangers team suddenly kind of feels like one of those teams that you don't want to run into. But they are definitely lacking in that starting pitching depth, and that bullpen was susceptible down the stretch. So their offense had pulled out to such big leads that the bullpen didn't really give it up. But I wonder what's going to happen here as we move forward with a much, maybe even a more potent offense in that Baltimore Orioles offense, whether that this Texas team can kind of keep them at bay. But with Baltimore's pitching being maybe a little suspect as well, this has the potential for kind of a high octane series, and one where I think you'll see Jordan Montgomery and Nathan Eovaldi need to show out again in order to get Texas through. I think they'll need to win those two games in order to make it through.
Yeah, as far as the Texas Tampa series went, like you mentioned, I was really really surprised that they only got 19,000 people there for the Trop, and then
Mm-hmm.
you were like, okay, well maybe game one, maybe game two they'll come out with the energy now that they're down. Like it was the same thing. I think it was like
Yep.
even less. I think they had like 18,000 something like that. Like it really really felt like the Rays and like the whole team just didn't feel like it was in the mindset to play this game. Like they looked just sluggish. I mean, it doesn't help that they've lost their two middle infielders. They were playing some guys that weren't completely healthy either, and it's like just the team really really lacked that. And I think it's kind of what I said on our wildcard prediction episode. The Rangers came out fierce. They came out like a team that was pissed off that they lost the division,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
basically just really really took that to the Rays here. Looking forward, like you mentioned, this Orioles Rangers series, it's probably my favorite series of the division series round. I am just fine with either of these teams moving on. Texas is really fun. They have a lot of former Dodgers, but the Orioles and that young core that they have brought up, and the whole vibe around what Camden Yards has done this year, and man, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to pick, but man, I think just something about the way that this Texas offense is clicking right now, and having the ability to have Montgomery, having Eovaldi, and there's even a very outside shot that they might have some version of Max Scherzer. He was supposed to face hitters today. Said he looked good, and that there's an outside shot that he's going to be listed on the roster.
Wow.
So I don't. That's not for sure that he's going to be listed on there, but they said there's an outside shot that he might be on the roster and maybe be able to give them something. And if they were to even move on, it sounds like he'll be ready for the championship series, which is a big, big deal for the Rangers there, for a team that just looked, really, really good in this division series. But Baltimore's no slouch. I mean, Baltimore's done a lot of good things this year. Adley, Gunnar, just everything around that. Grayson's looked really good lately. They're just a really, really fun team. And watching playoff baseball in Camden Yards, talk about a team that will have fans show up. That's going to be a place that's going to be packed and rocking. So it's going to be really, really interesting. But I think I'm going with Texas. What about you?
Yeah, I guess I didn't give my prediction, but I think that's fine because I do want to come back to this, the atmospheres talk, right? Neither of these teams have held a postseason game yet because these games were all played in Tampa. So Texas also is going to get to bring the atmosphere as well in their two home games in this series. I'm really excited to see what both of these fan bases can bring, because this is a Texas team that's going to have some energy around it. And let's remember, the last like really competitive Texas Rangers team went to the World Series twice, lost twice, right? That's a fan base that is, starved for a World Series, starved for a championship caliber team. And the way they played against a Rays team that all season we said was one of the strongest in the league, that gives me some big time encouragement. At the same time, you look at what's happened in Baltimore, right, over the last 7 years or so. I mean, this has been a team that's actively tanked, that has gone out of their way to be, the first or second draft pick every single season. They've accumulated so much talent that it's kind of all come to the forefront just this year. And these are going to be this is going to be a kind of a make or break series or not a make or break series, but like a coming of age party for these Baltimore Orioles, right? I really love Grayson Rodriguez. I really love Adley Rutschman. It's going to be so cool to get to see these guys on the center stage of playoff baseball. The question for me is this, this is obviously the first time. Is it the time, is the youth and exuberance, does that matter enough to overcome the more experienced Texas Rangers team, including like World Series champion Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, who's been to the playoffs a time or two, right? Like does Nathan Eovaldi, who's won a World Series, Max Scherzer, who's been to the World Series and won a World Series, like there's a lot of veteran presence. Aroldis Chapman, who's won the World Series and been to the playoffs a number of times. A lot of players on this Texas team have a lot of experience in these positions. The Rays, obviously, they've rotated in so many guys since they last won. Randy was about the only guy who kind of carried over from that original 2020 run. And, this Baltimore team has like nobody who's been to the world, been to the playoffs. So, I'm going to pick with the experience. I'm going to go with the Rangers, but I'm really excited to see how those young kids perform, man. They might just shock the world. I would not be surprised to see this one go 5 games. If I was picking the amount of games, I think it's going 5. And I think, Texas has to upset Baltimore in game 5 in a big atmosphere game. I think you're right. I think this is the series of the divisional round because, these are two teams that probably want it as much as anybody, and two fan bases that are going to be, maybe with the next fan base we talk about on the upswing, and they're really hungry for success. So I'm excited for this series. I think it's going to be good, but yeah, I'm going to go with the Rangers hesitantly in 5 games.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind being wrong on this one. Like the only thing, the Orioles feel like they're a year early here.
Right. It feels. I'll tell you what. The Orioles feel like if they had lost this division to the Rays, it would feel like identical to the 2015 Cubs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's that, and it's the fact that John Means isn't back fully healthy. Like Grayson, he's looked good lately, but he doesn't have the full season under his belt. Like they need one more starting pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
They've lost their closer now to Tommy John surgery. They're not even going to have him for next year. It just feels like there's a lot of things that this Orioles team is just a year away from. But the season they've had is amazing. I hope that I'm wrong on my prediction of picking the Rangers here. But that's it. Matt, for what it's worth, did pick the Orioles in this one. So if they do move on, he can sit back here when we do that and laugh at us. So.
Oh, for sure. I want to note, like, Kyle Bradish is their number 1 starter, and this Grayson's going game 2. So Kyle Bradish has been really, really strong this season. He has a 2.83 ERA. He's put out a 3.27 FIP. He was probably their most valuable starting pitcher this season. So, and I think you'll probably see I'm guessing Kyle Gibson will come out of the bullpen, and then maybe I don't know whether they'll want Dean Kramer or Kyle Gibson to start game 3. And you presume Jack Flaherty starts game 4, maybe. So
Means probably.
Oh, Means, yeah. They have a lot of like guys, but they're just, how confident are you in some of these guys? And that's kind of the biggest reason I'm not going to take the Orioles. And if their starting pitching shows up and shocks me, the only one that won't shock me is if Grayson delivers. I think Grayson's a superstar in the making.
Yeah. So let's jump over to the other American League wildcard series that we had between the Minnesota Twins and the Toronto Blue Jays. And game 1, it was Kevin Gausman versus Pablo Lopez. I feel like it kind of lived up to what we thought it would be. Gausman and Lopez were both very, very good. Gausman got burned twice by Royce Lewis, but outside of that was really, really good. Pablo Lopez looked really good as well. But really, this story of game 1 was Royce Lewis. First at bat, hit a 2-run homer to give them, I believe it was a 2-1 lead at the time. No,
it was a 2-0 lead. 2-0 lead.
2-0 lead. Came back in the third, hit another solo homer to give them a 3-0 lead. Toronto was able to score 1 later in the game, but Minnesota ended up finishing that one out in game 1. And then game 2 was the John Schneider decision heard around the world, which I'll let you get into that one.
Yeah, I don't know that I hate it, but Jose Barrios
Oh,
started
I
and
hate it.
was pitching pretty well, but he gave up a walk in the fourth inning, and
But
Schneider went out and pulled him instantly. And
who did
you
he
know,
walk?
I don't remember.
Royce Lewis.
It
So I
was
don't blame
Royce.
him at
Yeah,
all.
yeah. You don't blame him for pitching around Royce Lewis, but that's the heart of the Twins order that's coming up, and ultimately, I think Royce does come around to score. Um, but the thing about Barrios is Schneider noticed the the trends of Jose Barrios, and it was like once he faced the order the one time through, if he had it, the second time through was also good, and and then he was able to get through 6 innings. If he didn't have it, he would immediately, like his last two starts, he immediately gave up runs in that inning, right in that fourth inning, second time through the order. And that was a game, they can't afford giving up runs, but ultimately that's just it's a tough decision, right? You're trying to rely on your big money starting pitcher or trying to win the game. If Barrios goes in and gives up a home run to Carlos Correa in that instance, then everybody goes, why didn't you pull Jose Barrios? But ultimately it felt a little early, right? And I don't think that's the reason they lost the game. I think there's a much bigger blunder in this game where Vlad Guerrero Jr. is on second base and Bo Bichette's at the plate in a 3-2 count, and Vlad Guerrero Jr. gets picked off with runners on second and third and 2 outs. I think that's a far bigger blunder than the Barrios thing, because ultimately the Blue Jays team does hold the Twins to 2 runs, but the offense doesn't score. And Sonny Gray looks electric in this game, and Joan Duran closes it down. The Twins bullpen was really, really solid all throughout this series, and I was just the thing I was most impressed with, aside from these kind of blunders, which I'll kind of let you go give me the other side of, is the Twins fan base, man. They packed out the stadium. It was absolutely an electric atmosphere. It was night and day compared to the Rays stadium, where the home team almost felt like it didn't have an advantage. I mean, the Twins were just another level there. I mean, Minnesota's fan base showed up hoping to see finally, right, to break this 20-year playoff game curse. They showed up and it happened, and I feel great for the Minnesota fans. And you know that was a really cool series, because it was something that whole group has been longing for and dying for, and um, they finally got there. So my hat's off, and we'll see what they do in the next series.
Yeah, they don't have the 19-year curse hanging over them anymore. But a couple things. So in the first game, I think there was a big blunder by Bo Bichette in that game. It was a great play by Carlos Correa.
Yeah.
That I believe it was 3-1 at that time. I think it was what the final score ended up being. But there was first and second, 2 out. Somebody hit a chopper right towards the third baseman. It went under the third baseman's glove. Bichette was running to third, decided he wanted to try and go home to score. Correa made it. It was an unbelievable play that Correa made, coming barehanding, throwing the ball like directly on target off of 1 foot to get Bichette at the plate. Yeah. I hated that, because you would have had the bases loaded with 2 outs and Matt Chapman coming to the plate. Now, Matt Chapman has struggled like a lot in the second half of the year, but the game-changing ability of power that he has to be able to quickly flip that game on its head, I would have much rather had that try and play out than make it a 3-2 game there with runners on first and second and 2 outs still. Like, it doesn't really do much for you in that aspect. So I hated that play happened. It ended up flipping the whole energy of that inning, or basically ended that inning, and just fueled that Minnesota crowd to the point where they ended up winning that one. The Barrios thing, I absolutely hate it. I was watching that game. That was the best Jose Barrios I've seen a lot this year, and I've watched a lot of his starts. Mm-hmm. He was looking absolutely like he had some of the best stuff he's had, and also this was not really a revenge game for Barrios, but the Twins traded Barrios away. I think this was his first start back in Minnesota since he got traded, and he always loved pitching here. Yep. And the way they kind of teased this move after the first inning. So Barrios threw the first inning. They immediately got Kikuchi up in the bullpen, like immediately. And like there even showed like Barrios like in the dugout, like kind of like what's going on here. So he goes back out. He 3 innings, 5 strikeouts. He walked around Royce Lewis, which I don't mind at all. And the only reason that John Schneider made this move is they were talking about it, is because they had one lefty coming up right there, right? And the Twins were going to pinch hit the next two people for right-handers. So he wanted the matchup of getting the right-handers into the game as soon as possible for the Twins, so that he felt like it would be a better matchup for his team in the back half of the game. But what you did is you pretty much took all of the energy away from your team at that moment, because immediately it was the lefty, I think it was Max Kepler, immediately got a hit. It was a single. And then you had, I believe it was Donovan Solano, the
It was
one that
Donovan
pinched hit.
Solano. He walks.
He walks, and then Correa, I believe it was Correa.
Correa singles.
Correa singles, 2 runs score. Those are the 2 runs that you lose the game by. It was all happened in that inning. And it was all because you wanted to get the right-handers in the game right away, because you felt you would have a better matchup later on. But your starter's out there. He pitches around the guy who killed you in the first game. So, like, I don't mind him pitching around that at all. And he had some of the best stuff in there. He was only at 47 pitches.
Mm-hmm.
And you come out and take him and bring out a guy, Kikuchi, who's really struggled as of late, because you feel like you might have a better matchup there. But it's like you just, everyone on the Blue Jays even said like they hated that move. Like it just took all their wind out of their sails right there, and it gave all the energy to Minnesota right there, because once they had that lead, the crowd like thought, hey, this is legitimately a chance. Like they felt like it was a chance, and they just shut them down. And the Blue Jays offense from that point, like, mind you, it was I think the next inning, the next time the Blue Jays got up, I believe is when Vlad Jr. made that error. It was either that one or the next inning. And it's like they were already in this mindset of like that. I absolutely hated the move at that moment. Like, let's say you're in the 6th inning and he walks Royce Lewis at that point. Okay, fine. You know, if it's 2 innings later and he's up there in 80 pitches, 85 pitches, all right, fine. But to do it in the 4th inning when he's looked that good so far, I hated that move. Hated it.
I gotcha. All right. So, well, yeah, I mean, let's look ahead, right? So the Twins now get the Astros, who, you know, are the defending World Series champs. They're going to have Framber Valdez and then some question marks in the starting pitching. I think the Twins ought to have the advantage in a number of these games after game 1. In the terms of starting pitching, and we know what the back half of the Twins bullpen looks like, and Ryan Presley, Hector Neris, the back half of the Astros bullpen is certainly not as potent, I think, as the 102-mile-an-hour throwing Yon Duran. So, you know, aside from that, right, we know the Astros offense and how good that team is, right, with Jose Altuve, Yordan Alvarez. They're dangerous. They're dangerous in the playoffs. They've got Hall of Famers on the team. Like, it's a really, really good group. The Twins are going to have to shut them down with their superior pitching. How do we see this one going? As you know, they're not going to get the benefit of that Minnesota crowd for all 5 games. They're going to have to only, you know, get that 2 games this time.
Yeah, I think they have to come out and they have to beat Verlander or Valdez. And it really probably is going to have to come down to game 2 and beating Valdez, because game 1, it's going to be, they're not even starting Joe Ryan game 1. They're starting Bailey Ober. Wow. The Twins are. So it's going to be Bailey Ober versus Verlander. Like, they have to come out and try and do, like, that's going to be tough to do that one. And then game 2, Framber at home is like untouchable. Like, he's like super good at home. And mind you, you're going to have Pablo Lopez, but I mean, like you just mentioned, you just basically were naming them off. You're going to have Jose Altuve. You're going to have Yordan Alvarez. You're going to have Kyle Tucker. You're going to have Alex Bregman. Yep. Like, in Houston, like, that's a tough place to go in there as a road crowd in the playoffs. And Pablo Lopez is going to have to step up again. And you're going to have to try and muster what you can between Framber Valdez. Once you get to game 3, when you're able to do, it's going to be Sonny Gray versus who knows at that point. Like, that's going to be in Minnesota. you have the advantage there. You might have Joe Ryan for game 4, I guess, in Minnesota. Then you would probably want to start him at home. But you have to try and steal one of those the first time in Houston, because you're not going to be able to come back to Houston in game 5. And it's most likely going to be against Valdez again in game 4, because the way that the schedule lines up, you're going to basically be able to have your game 1 starter in game 4 and your game 2 starter in game 5. So you're going to have to face Verlander and Valdez twice in this series. Like, that's really, really tough. And the way that Astro offense can get up and get going, I see the Twins having a hard time being able to keep shutting them down. So I'm going with the Astros here. Another interesting story that we're going to have is Carlos Correa back in Houston.
Oh yeah,
that's going to be something too in a playoff series. So, and mind you, I mean, who did we have step up for the Astros last year? Jeremy Pena. Hasn't done anything yet, or hasn't done much this season. Really, really struggled. We'll see if he can step up and be another postseason hero again. But this Astros team, I just feel like the offense is really, really good. The top 2 in this rotation is really good. And it being a 5-game series where you can use those top 2 guys twice, that's why I think the Astros rotation concerns aren't nearly as, for this series at least, aren't nearly as valid as everyone wants to play it up to be.
Right. I think you laid out the path for Minnesota, right? You need Royce, Correa, and maybe one other hitter to come out and just have a huge series, right? You just need to assume, okay, Correa is going to come out with a vengeance series and just put in a big one. You need Royce or somebody else to follow with him to protect him in the lineup so that the Astros don't just start pitching around him. You've got to take one of the first 2 games in Houston, because if you can get back to Minnesota at 1-1, I think they could win this series in Minnesota. Just win game 3, win game 4, done. But that is a huge ask of a Minnesota lineup that is simply overmatched by this Houston lineup. It's just a big advantage in terms of the amount of consistency and power shown by all the guys we mentioned. We didn't even get to Chas McCormick, who has 20 home runs playing center field this year for Houston. Michael Brantley's back, right? Like, this is an experienced team that was almost all together last year, with the exception of, I guess, Verlander was there last year. So, yeah. I mean, this is a team that was all together last year. They're all back, right? It's with the addition of Jose Abreu, I guess, but ultimately, it's hard to pick against this Houston team. I will not, right? But I'll declare this as my jinx pick. I'm picking Houston because I'm hoping the Twins find a way, right? I hope the Twins find a way, but I just don't see a way to pick against this Houston team, right? I mean, this is just a juggernaut of a team, and they're a tough out in these playoffs. We've seen it years and years, right? They've made the World Series in 17, 19, 21, and 23 or 22, right? Like 4 of the last 6 years. Yeah. Houston's been in the World Series. Can't pick against them. If they lose, I'm happy, right? But you can't pick against them. So Houston over the Twins, we'll say in 5, right? Let's say they win 2, Twins win 2 in Minnesota, Houston wins their final game in Houston. And that's that.
I've spent too much time betting and rooting against the Astros to know better at this point. Like, it just, in this series, it just feels like that. But for what it is worth, again, Matt did pick different of us, and he went Twins, so he has a opposite AL side of the bracket than we do. We both went Rangers Astros for the Texas ALCS, and Matt went with Twins Orioles for the American League. So that'll be interesting to see how it plays out. So
all right,
let's move over.
Well, before we leave the AL behind, if given your preference as an NL fan, right, what do you want to happen? Not what do you think is going to happen. What is the ALCS matchup you want to see?
Probably Orioles Twins.
I think I'm right there with you on that one.
I think that would probably be the one that Matt picked. I mean, that probably would be my funnest ALCS, because I would have no rooting interest in that one. I would just be watching that for the fun of it. I
Yeah.
think in both of these series, I kind of have a little bit of a rooting interest. Obviously, I want to see the Astros kind of lose, but then on the other one, on the other side, it's like the Orioles are super fun. The Rangers have a lot of former Dodgers, so I kind of have that at heart, like Corey Seager.
Mhm.
I mean, him solo, like single handedly helping the 2020 World Series team. So, yeah, I think if you told me my ideal funnest matchup would be Orioles Twins, probably.
I think I'm right there with you. I want to see this Twins fan base, get to where I can feel like they're the team of destiny.
Yeah,
Uh, we always see weird stuff happen in the MLB, playoffs. So
never
to
know.
me, this Twins team with this opportunity is that team that could go to the World Series on the strength of that starting pitching, on the strength of Carlos Correa and Royce Lewis, and maybe they'll get Byron Buxton back this series, and they're a very exciting group that can get better really really fast.
Yeah. One last thing before we do leave the American League. On Tuesday, October 10th, so this next Tuesday coming up, we will be doing a watch along of the Baltimore at Texas game that starts at 8 Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on our YouTube channel. So if you guys want to hear our reactions to how the whole slate of game ones have gone, and or I guess it's game three. Huh? It's game three.
It is game three, yeah.
How the first couple games of each series have gone, and then see how we react to game three going live. We'll be doing that on our YouTube channel at Batflip Podcast. So make sure to come check out and hang out with us on that night.
There's a non-zero chance we are crowning an ALCS participant.
Yeah, there is. So now let's move over to the National League side. Let's go ahead and start with the Arizona-Milwaukee series. And this one started off really good for Milwaukee. You had Corbin Burnes on the mound. You were facing Brandon Pfaadt. You scored in the bottom of the first, 1 run. You came back in the second. You scored 2. Corbin Burnes looked like he was rolling. And then in the third inning, he gave up. Was it the one to he gave
Corbin
a homer to
Carroll.
Corbin Carroll. He gave a homer to Ketel Marte. I believe both were those both of those. No, Corbin Carroll's was a 2-run shot. Ketel's was a solo. Kind of flipped the game on its head there. And then in the fourth inning, Gabriel Moreno kind of did the finishing shot right there and hit another solo homer off of Corbin Burnes. That I believe that was after that Burnes got pulled, and it just there was no energy left in Milwaukee at that point. I mean, they had fought out of the game already, and they went to that. They have a really, really good bullpen. Arizona does, and then just went to Mantiply, Castro, Nelson, Ryan Thompson up, inning and 2/3 there, really, really strong. And then Kevin Ginkel, two innings, 4 strikeouts, just never even gave him a chance here. And Arizona won that game 6-3, and then in game 2 we had the Zach Gallen game.
Mm-hmm. Zach was, of course, good. I'm trying to look at it, but I mean, it was a close game until the middle of the game. But Corbin Carroll again hit a double.
Gallen had 6
got him
innings. Gallen had 6 innings of two earned runs. He wasn't really high on the strikeouts, only 4 strikeouts there, but Peralta went 5 innings, 4 earned runs there. Didn't really live up to what they really kind of needed from him in that aspect, but it was really just this Arizona offense. It was Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte. I mean, kind of just taking it over.
Playing like superstars, man. Corbin Carroll, I tell you what, we're going to get to him a bunch when it comes to the rookie, the awards episode where Rookie of the Year we're talking about, and all that other stuff. But man, he's been every bit as advertised and then some, and he's still going, and he's going to be the superstar leading this Diamondbacks team into the Dodgers series. And a homer, a double to get into scoring position where he scores a run. He's a terror on the base paths. He plays good defense in left field. I mean, this dude is just a superstar, man. It's crazy how good this guy's been. And Ketel Marte's been really great, but I think you did touch on the thing that surprised me the most about this series, and that was this Arizona bullpen. They had Kevin Ginkel coming out, he was nasty, and Thompson was throwing 97, 98. They had some really, really good freaking bullpen pitchers out there, man. I was genuinely shocked because the Cubs played against Arizona, and we, of course, saw the starting pitching, right, with Brandon Pfaadt, who just hasn't really lived up to that prospect of billing. The Zach Davies was on the rotation for a while, right? This was not a super impressive pitching team, but when we got to the playoffs, this bullpen has absolutely taken off, and I am fully confident that if these Diamondbacks can build a lead, this bullpen can shut down the Dodgers. The Brewers' offense is not as good as the Dodgers, and they were not up to snuff, I think, in this series. And what ended up happening for you guys who picked the Diamondbacks happened exactly, which was the Diamondbacks' offense came out, showed out, got enough runs, and the pitching held off the Brewers' offense. I did declare it the jinx pick, so I'm only going to declare the one jinx pick per round, obviously, but that exactly happened. You guys were spot on, and ultimately, I'm not upset to see Milwaukee go home, but it was very clear that Arizona had the advantage in the pitching, which was not something I was expecting going into the series.
Yeah, it was kind of head scratching. I mean, Burns isn't untouchable. Corbin Burns isn't.
I'm fully aware.
And you kind of hoped that he was going to kind of live up to that. The untouchable aspect. The Brewers kind of had to hope that he would. The way that the Diamondbacks set up their rotation were really kind of conceding game one, and setting themselves up for the way game 2 or 3 really to have the benefit there, especially with Woodruff out. But yeah, it just the way that the Diamondbacks, which I've seen it firsthand, being in the division, they are a really good team. They, and it's kind of leaking over into what we'll talk about here with their upcoming series in LA. To start off this season, they were extremely, extremely hot. They took 5 of, I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the first 8 games from the Dodgers this year. And some of those were just really, really blowout games. Like, they were just unbelievable. They faced them later in the year, and they were still kind of scrappy, but they kind of wore down a little bit. This Diamondbacks team right now that came out here and played this wildcard series didn't look like a team that wore down. This looked like right. The team that you saw at the beginning of the year. They look like they could be absolutely electric. They could be the Phillies of last year. The team that just kind of surprises people, goes into the wild card round, and then we're seeing them into the next series, and people are like, oh, like last year, nobody thought the Phillies were going to beat the Braves, and it's like, well, they did, and it's just, this feels kind of like that.
Yeah,
that's why, as a Dodger fan, I'm not going to say that they're over that this is a series by any means that the Dodgers are going to blow them away. And I don't feel like that. We saw this team last year overlook the Padres, a division team that they had beat up on, and lose in the NLDS last year. And now you get kind of the same scenario, just a different team. And this team showed the ability to do that. It's going to be a tough series. I still think eventually I'm going to lean with LA. Maybe that's my homerism there. But I just feel like with the offense and the bullpen that LA has, even with the starting pitching question marks that they have there. But this is going to be a really, really tough dogfight series, I feel like.
Yeah, this is a tested Diamondbacks team, right? And they're going up against a Dodgers team that is not at full song. This is a Dodgers team that's lost Julio Urias to, suspension, essentially. They've lost, a bunch of other starting pitchers. I'll let you name them because they're not coming to my head for some reason. This is a team that's going to be starting Lance Lynn in a playoff series, probably, right? So maybe, right? And they'll probably be piggybacking him with Ryan Yarbrough. I think what you said, Kershaw's going game 1, Bobby Miller's going game 2.
Yeah. Game 3. Game 3, it sounds like it's either going to be Lynn or Pepio.
Yeah, this is not the Dodgers of old. Right. This is a Dodgers team that's having to scrounge and claw their way, which in turn, maybe it gives me a little extra confidence in the Dodgers because they're not out here expecting it. Right. This is a team that knows they know their starting rotation is kind of torn to shreds to this point, and they don't really have any stability there. Kershaw hasn't really been himself in months at this point, and they're sending a rookie out there in game 2. Right. So, I guess I'm not I'm thinking it's the opposite kind of thing of last year, right? Last year, you could see a 100-win team being a little overconfident, and we saw both the Dodgers and the Braves lose in the NLDS last year. But for this series, both they have that experience from last year, and they have, the understanding that they're going to have to rise up. Not to mention, I think this Dodgers bullpen is on the same level ground as the Diamondbacks bullpen, right? With Evan Phillips and with, just the amount of really good work that a lot of those guys are able to do. Shelby Miller's been good, which is hilarious, coming out of the bullpen. But you got Blake Trinan back there. I don't know if he's hurt. He probably is.
Yeah, Trinan's not going to be there for the playoffs.
Yeah, but I know the Dodgers bullpen has been one of the best bullpens in baseball this season, and they've done it with some kind of lesser known guys. So, ultimately, I think the Dodgers also have the superstar advantage with Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, right? You've got guys who are going to be on base all series long, right? And the set that we just saw the Diamondbacks win, I could maybe understand picking the Diamondbacks, but because this is a longer series of 5 games, and the Dodgers are going to have home field advantage, I just have a very difficult time seeing this Diamondbacks team taking down the Dodgers. So I'll pick the Dodgers, but that's not a super confident pick. It's just I feel like it's the Dodgers, right? They're not going to lose in the DS 2 years in a row. That's kind of my entire philosophy behind this. I think everything you said is kind of valid because this Diamondbacks team looks like a team that could really sneak in and be the Phillies of last year, be the Padres of last year, but
yeah,
we'll see.
The difference, like you did mention, the difference with this Dodgers team this year is they're not the overpowering juggernaut that you think. They are a very scrappy team. They are a team that they don't, oddly enough, they don't rely on the homer as much as they were previously. They've kind of been able to adapt to more of balls in play here, but the pitching staff is really where the question is going to come down to. Dave Roberts pretty much said that he'll be surprised if any of his starters give him 5 innings in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is very much going to be a pitching staff rather than a rotation in a bullpen. You're going to see guys like Emmett Sheehan, Ryan Pepio, maybe even Michael Grove, Yarborough, that are going to be like 3 inning guys out of the bullpen. Like, you're going to see guys go 3 innings and then those 3 out, and then you get to your Joe Kelly's, Evan Phillips, maybe Yency Almonte. I don't know if he'll be back or not. Bruce Dar, Shelby Miller, like that. You'll get to that group of guys a lot more often than you're going to normally. So it's going to be a scrappy one. And this Diamondbacks team could absolutely turn it on if it's the Diamondbacks team that showed up against the Brewers. But all 3 of us are picking the Dodgers in this series. So we're obviously going to have that jinx of when everyone on the graphic has one team and then the other team wins, and then people laugh at us. So
of
that's
course
going to happen.
It's one of those. I did finally get the statistics that I wanted to pull up of the Dodger bullpen. Brusdar Graterol 1.20 ERA, Evan Phillips 2.05 ERA, Ryan Brazier 0.70 ERA, and Shelby Miller 1.71 ERA. So the back end of that bullpen has been very good this year.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that they'll have the advantage over the Diamondbacks, and I just spent half the thing ramping up the Diamondbacks bullpen. It was better than I thought. The Dodgers bullpen is even better than I thought too, right? So I think, it's if indeed it comes down to these 3 inning set guys, I think the Dodgers may kind of almost create a new opportunity for major league teams to kind of go, well, we can have 13 pitchers. Let's just have 13 guys who can go 3 innings, and then that way we'll just throw 2 of them in each game, and we'll always have somebody fresh. We'll never be going through the order twice. It might work.
Yeah, so just to bounce that off that, Brusdar hasn't given up a earned run since like July 24th. Evan Phillips since the beginning of August has given up a full total of 4 earned runs, and Ryan Brazier has 1 earned run since July 4th.
Yeah.
That's what they're looking there. It's how do you get to those guys? That's going to be the real question mark there. And if it's a close game late in it, you got to favor the Dodgers, but it's if they're going to jump in early. That's where the Diamondbacks have to do it. They have to do it early.
Yep. Gotcha.
There. So let's jump over to the other series, which is going to be another one of the fun series, a rematch of last year's NLDS, and that is the Atlanta Braves and the Philadelphia Phillies. Oh, I guess we didn't even talk about the Phillies beating the Marlins, but that was just a slaughter, is what it really was.
Oh my
so
goodness.
Maybe that's why I forgot about it. Phillies just won 4-1 in the first game, and then in the second game, it was pure domination by the Phillies, 7 runs. Miami never felt like they had a chance in this series from the moment that the first pitch happened. I guess that's kind of why I just blew over it. But go ahead and give us a little bit of thoughts on the recap of that one, David.
Yeah, Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola were dominant in those two starts. Marlins were helpless, and Bryson Stott hit a grand slam in game 2. Philly was rocking for that one. Alec Boehm hit a double in game 1. This was just a series that didn't even it felt like a formality. Our whole entire group picked the Phillies to beat the Marlins, and we saw a team that it looked like a team that was at a negative 50 run differential, which is what they were, right? The Marlins got in because other teams collapsed, and they're quickly erased. Ultimately, I think this just goes to give the Phillies some momentum, and if anything, it's gonna scare the Braves. That this Phillies team is gonna be coming in with some confidence and some swag, as it were, right? They're gonna have Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, all these guys, with their really good playoff performances in the past. Castellanos is already getting a bunch of hits. He was one of the heroes in game 1, along with Boehm. I really like this Phillies team going in, and we've seen them beat the Braves, but this is a different Braves team. This is a Braves team with the new rule changes, with Ronald Acuna going 40-70 and Matt Olson having a 50 home run season. They are operating at peak performance, and they felt like the World Series favorite since about mid-May. So, I mean, I'll be shocked if they aren't able to dispatch the Phillies, but if they are going to struggle with the Phillies, then, I mean, the Phillies are they are the team of destiny that we talked about, right? Like, the Braves have felt like a foregone conclusion to be the team that gets through the NL for a while, at least from my perspective. Looking in, as well, the Dodgers are having these starting pitching issues, and there's not really anybody else in the NL that's kind of all that dominant. But this is the series that could be a big time danger for this Braves team. That said, they're sending Spencer Strider well rested game 1. They're sending Max Fried well rested in game 2. Big time advantages that the Phillies won't be able to send their aces because they just pitched. Until I think 2 and 3, game 2 and 3, will go Wheeler and Nola. So, in this game, this will be in Atlanta. Obviously Atlanta won the World Series a couple of years ago, but this is an even better team, I think, than that team was.
Yeah, this series is going to be a high intensity series between both of these crowds. I mean, Atlanta and Philly, I mean, two electric playoff atmospheres.
Rivals too.
Right. I mean, yeah, rivals from the same division. It's really going to come down to what game 1 looks like. You're going to have Spencer Strider against Ranger Suarez, and you need Strider to have like a typical Strider start, strike out a bunch of people, and really you need them to kind of take Philly out of it beforehand. If Philly's able to steal game 1, like, this flips it on its head, because I feel like you do have the advantage in game 2 and game 3, just because Max Fried's been dealing with the blister. He was on the IL. He didn't finish the year. I mean, he's good. You're not sure how built up he's going to be. Wheeler, he thrives in these playoff atmospheres. And then if you get to game 3, or when you get to game 3, it's going to be Aaron Nola versus who? We aren't sure. Is it Bryce Elder right now who's been getting hit around? I mean, they're not going to have Charlie Morton. It's just, I mean, you're looking at Bryce Elder, AJ Smith-Shawver, Dylan Dodd. I mean, like it's most likely going to be Elder. I just have a lot of questions about the back half of that rotation there. If you're able to steal game 1 and 2, game 1 especially, I feel like Philly has a good chance. It's going to be electric. I'm leaning towards the Phillies just because if there's one team that usually gives the Braves trouble, it's the Phillies here. And if they know a weakness for Atlanta, it's Philly. So maybe I'm counting on what they did last year, but I do know this is a different Braves team. This Braves team's really good. I mean, the offensive marks they've set as a team this year, it's been incredible. Ronald Acuna Jr., you're going to have Matt Olson right there. Ozzie Albies has been great this year too. Austin Riley, Sean Murphy's kind of slowed down, but I mean, I think everyone you say there, you can kind of look at the Phillies and almost say like, okay, well, you get postseason Kyle Schwarber, you're getting postseason Bryce Harper, you're getting Trey Turner, who has been like the hottest baseball player the last like 2.5 months. Like you get Nick Castellanos, who's always really good in this and turned into like prime, like Gold Glove defensive Nick Castellanos last postseason against the Braves here. Like Bryson Stotts came up huge. JT Realmuto, like man, this is going to be such a fun series here.
Yeah, star-studded teams for sure.
Yeah, so I'm going to be the one dummy of the Batfield podcast here, and I'm picking the Phillies over the Braves this series. So, yeah, let's get ready to laugh at me.
No, I like it. I think it's a matter of the Phillies finding a way to win one of the Strider or Fried games, and I guess I'm also considering Fried as, I think he's well rested. I don't think they'd be throwing him if they were worried about that blister. And even if the Braves do lose game 3, we mentioned that the ace can go game 4 and the 2 can go game 5. So you're getting 2 games of Strider and Fried. Morton might be back for the next series. I'm okay with staking my claim to, if I'm the Braves, staking my claim to the DS on 2 games of Spencer Strider. Right? Unless they get swept, you're getting 2 games of Spencer Strider, and I feel good about that. So, this is the guy who he had the more strikeouts than anybody in baseball this season. With 281 this season. So I'm definitely gonna be on board that train, and we'll see what happens with regards to this atmosphere, because I think it's gonna be really fun. I am gonna pick the Braves. Mostly because I think I'm really kind of excited for that Braves Dodgers NLCS that we haven't gotten since did we get it in 2021? I think we did.
Yeah, 2021 did.
Yeah. So that's always a good series. But I think it's very valid to give the Phillies and really the Diamondbacks opportunities to get into this championship series, because those are 2 scrappy teams that are gonna take it all to these kind of juggernaut teams that have been here just about every year. But again, I think the Braves are gonna have learned something from last season, and they've gone out and made that team better. So I do trust that they'll, even if they do struggle in the pitching department, this is a team that never gives up. They're able to make comebacks. The offense is relentless. It's going to score a lot of runs, even off of Wheeler and Nola. I have a very difficult time picking against one of the best offenses that's ever played, a season of baseball.
Yeah, it's hard, especially with the question marks in the Philly bullpen. But we'll see. So you guys picking the Braves versus Dodgers. I'm picking Phillies versus Dodgers. We did this with the American League real quick, so let's do it with the National League. What would be your funnest AL or NLCS matchup?
Well, I think the Phillies would have to be in the fun NLCS, so I think it would have to be Phillies Diamondbacks, right? But ultimately, I do think that Braves Dodgers matchup of the kind of the Titans of the National League, that's one that I think is going to be really fun. But again, like I've felt very strongly that this Braves team is the team to beat. So if the team to beat goes down and it opens up the floor, I think that would make the Phillies Diamondbacks series the most fun. So I'm going to sit on that as the most fun series, where you've got that big Philadelphia crowd, you've got that Arizona crowd hungry for a competitive team. But yeah, those are my two, I think, fun groups. But yeah, we'll go Phillies Diamondbacks. What about you?
Well, I mean, I have complete homerism here, but
Of course.
Dodgers Braves, um, just because we've seen it we've seen it so many times. I mean, the 2020 year and then 2021, they kind of got it back. It's like you kind of want the trifecta. You want the tiebreaker kind of. I mean, they're both. I mean, the Braves team is just so electric, and then this is such a different kind of Dodgers team than what we're used to seeing. I would wonder how they would match up. It feels like it'd be like overpowering from the Braves, and the Dodgers would have to kind of find the way to scrap it through. But that would probably be my funnest. I have bad memories against both of these teams in the playoffs as a Dodger fan. The 07-08 Phillies teams like ruined my childhood for a little bit of time there, and then
Well, don't worry, the 08 Dodgers ruined mine. It's fine.
Yeah, so we're just ruining each other's. But yeah, I would say if I had to pick one, it would probably just be the Braves Dodgers, just because you kind of want to see the tiebreaker match from 2020 and 2021.
Right,
So
because I mean, it's 1-1 really.
Yeah.
But I do also have memories of Craig Kimbrell standing out in the bullpen watching the Braves give it up to the Dodgers, and I think that was 2017. So it might have been earlier than that,
I
actually.
think it was earlier than that because I think he had Juan Uribe still. So it
Was that 15?
maybe.
Yeah. But that was a DS. They've played a lot in the playoffs. Is my point.
They have. But of the recent memory, I mean, you're talking about the 2020, that Big O series there, and then 2021 they got us back, and then also what would like a playoff series look like with Freddie Freeman now in Dodger blue?
Right. Yeah. It's it would be Freddie Freeman's revenge series. When we talked about that with Correa, we talked who was the other one? Barrios.
Yeah, Barrios.
So
there's fun, but anyways, so that's our predictions, wildcard recap predictions for the DS. So anything, I mean, we're going to be talking to them on Tuesday. So anything looking up to the live stream here and kind of what you're looking for in these first 2 or 3 games?
No, I'm really excited that we get to do an Orioles Rangers game. I think that was the series, that I was most excited about. I think that's a perfect one. It's unfortunate we won't get the Grayson start, but I think we're getting Eovaldi, right? So, that'll be good. Yeah, it's exciting. We'll see what happens then. As far as stuff I'm looking forward to, we talked about it, right? It's a lot of the teams with buys. Are they going to be sluggish because they weren't playing? Are the teams that played in this wild card series a little more up to snuff because they, were continuing on, more in rhythm? We'll see. I don't know if there's really a difference in that, but remember last year, right? Both NL favorites went down in the first series, so to the team that played in the wild card series. So I let's see, right? But I do tend to think that buys are more useful, right? Rested players are going to perform better. I'll hang on to that one until I die. But other than that, let's get to Tuesday. Let's see what happens. National League Division Series and AL, the Division Series. Let's go.
Yeah. I think you've seen teams, the teams on bye. They've been doing like inter squad games, which they didn't do the last couple of years. So I think they're starting to kind of see a trend of maybe that week-long layoff is a little bit hurtful. So they're doing something to help combat that a little bit. So we'll see. It is going to be interesting. I am excited that we get to do a Texas-Baltimore game. And like I said, that one will be at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern time, October 10th, live on YouTube at Batflip Podcast. We will probably be going live right around 4:45, 5-ish. I'm saying that Pacific time because that's where I'm at, but do the math yourself, people. Just be on the lookout, and we'll catch you guys there, and have fun watching the first 2 or 3 games of each of your series, and we'll see you guys on Tuesday.